Rinkside is a presentation of Able Auctions. If you're closing your business, selling your assets, email sales@ableauctions.ca. They can help. And JD Burke now joining us from Montreal from Elite Prospects as well. JD, are you glad it's all over right now? I'm sure it was quite long days for you.
And how? I'm so tired. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of also having fun because it's in person now. So you can actually hang out. You can go to a bar and, maybe did a bit of that this week.
Attaboy.
But mostly just a lot of work and a lot of fun covering the draft and now looking to get into it with you two on Rinkside.
All right, so we got 6 picks for the Vancouver Canucks. Let's start right at the top, and a player that it seems like they're quite high on, Todd Harvey, speaking to the media after the draft, Jonathan Lekkerimäki out of Sweden. Tell us about the right winger, because we heard that they had their eyes on him and they got him at 15.
Well, he can play both sides from what I've seen on the left as well, and he's got a wicked shot. Great hands. I mean, he really put up a ton of points in the J20, solid production in the SHL as well. You know, I have questions about the competitiveness, the willingness to play inside, to take hits, to make plays. Two-way diligence could be a bit better, I would tend to think. You know, I don't know if he was the pick I would have made in that spot. But you know what? It passes the test as a reasonable selection, so you can't really complain. And I know they coveted him a lot. Perhaps even in the top 10. So they're very happy with this pick. And you know what? I think Canucks fans should be as well.
JD, how much stock do you put into the fact that this guy scored 7 goals in the Swedish Hockey League as a 17-year-old?
Yeah, well, it's tough because he was put in that position to succeed as opposed to somebody like a Liam Ögren or a Noah Ostlund who had to play at the bottom of the lineup. So he had all those chances to score, and he made the most of it. That counts for a lot, right? Like he took what was available and he ran with it. So that's not nothing, but he also had a chance that somebody like an Ögren or an Ostlund or perhaps even Kasper to some degree did not have. So you have to take that into account. But I think it speaks to his shot. I mean, he got first unit power play reps. That's pretty uncommon for somebody at this stage in their career. So you know what? Like, full credit to him. He put up points, and I think looks very well with most draft analytics as a result.
Just out of curiosity, the way the board fell, who would you have selected if you'd been the Canucks at 15?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I mean, I like Ögren in that spot. That would have been a solid bet for me. Ryan Chesley would have fit a need as a right shot defenseman. Just looking at our board, Callie Odelius, I know he went at the end of the second, but I know the Canucks coveted him as well. If he was there in the third, I suspect they would have taken him ahead of Elias Paterson the second. So, those are some of the players that I liked. And, it's a good pick and it's totally reasonable. And I suppose we'll see in time if that, pans out for them. I also would have looked at Joakim Kemmel, who I see as like the luxury version of Lekkerimäki, outproduced him, has perhaps a better shot even, according to some scouts, I would say. And you know what, the statistical profile is really great for that player. So, there were options, but I think they're very happy with the one that they made.
Now, the first Elias Pettersson has certainly panned out for the Vancouver Canucks. Tell us about...
Now it's squared.
Tell us about the other Elias Pettersson, because I think a few people were caught off guard by the name, but maybe perhaps where he was selected as well.
Well, not a high upside bet. That's what I will say, right? Like, not a lot of offense coming with that pick. He's an in-zone defensive presence. Played with Örebro whole season in the SHL, which is a really good sign. I mean, especially at that age, to play for a good SHL team as he did. He moved the puck, can defend well. Probably projects to the bottom of the lineup. But if you can find a player who has a high floor at that part of the draft, you're doing pretty well. So I actually don't mind that pick at all. We had him in the 50s because we respected the degree to which he performed for Örebro in the SHL. And you know what? I think that he, if nothing else, can be somebody who has organizational depth, and that counts for something.
They went on to select Damon Gardner, big kid out of Minnesota High School. He's going to stay in the USHL. There was some suggestion that he might come and play in Chilliwack in the BC Hockey League, but he shot that down, said he's going back to the USHL and then on to college. Big body, left shot center. Interesting story, First Nations kid from Ontario. How much do you know about Damon Gardner?
Well, the USHL choice is probably the right one. I mean, just start with that. I mean, the BCHL would not be the challenge that he he needs at this stage in his development. And you know what? Like, my colleagues think very highly of him. I haven't seen a ton of Gardner tape, but what I have seen, he's got skill, he's got size. He's going to a good program at Clarkson. You look at Alexander Campbell, you look at somebody like Ayrton Martino. They produce some pretty solid offensive talents in an environment that doesn't really usually do that, the ECAC. So, I mean, it's a solid pick. I like it. I know some Canucks fans will say it kind of looks a bit like Coons all over again. Yeah. Jackson Coons in fourth at 2020, I believe. But I think it's a different player with more skill, more upside, and it's a project pick, but it could pan out. And you know what? In that part of the draft, like that's solid.
Yeah, and you look at the goaltender that they picked. I'm not going to get you to break down goaltending. I think there's other guys.
It would be a fraud exercise. I would fail miserably.
But I think this is where we just give Ian Clark the respect that if you kind of have to defer to Ian that if there's a guy there that he liked that.
I have to push back on that. You look at the Aku Koskinvuo pick last season. That was just appalling. They took him right in the spot where he was expected to go, but you look sub 900 in the Finnish U20 circuit as a draft +1. That's not ideal. And you look at the statistical profile of Ty Young, and it's like, ooh, is this happening for the second straight draft, right? Would have been in the AJHL if not for a midseason trade. It was mostly a backup to Tyler Brennan, so it's not that promising, but perhaps he sees something, and that's why the Canucks made the investment.
Okay, the final two picks that they have, left-handed shot defenseman Jackson Dorrington and left-handed shot Kirill, and I'll let you say his last name because I'm going to dollywall it. But tell us about those two, and again, you're looking at sort of organizational depth, and they got left-handed shot D-man. You'd think that they would be going for a right shot there, or perhaps even a center that has a right shot, but they go with Dorrington and the Russian player as well. Fill us in on those guys.
You know what? Very different players. I mean, Dorrington is probably a low upside bet. You want organizational depth with that pick. Can move the puck. Skating is a bit of an issue. Hands aren't great, but perhaps he could be an in-zone defensive presence at the NHL level. Kudryavtsev, the exact opposite. Moves the puck well. He can skate. He can activate off the offensive blue line. Has some real talent, and we had him at 104 on our board, so that's really good value at the end of the draft. And it's a project, but perhaps it will pan out, and that's all you can ask for at that part of the draft.
Got some fireworks right off the bat, obviously with Montreal and holding that first overall selection and going for Slafkovsky rather than Shane Wright, who drops to 4. Just as we step back and we had you on as a preview ahead of the draft, now we know how it's all shaken out here. The dust's still sort of settling, but any teams in particular that you think did, remarkably well as they walk away from the draft in Montreal?
Canucks fans will hate this, but Minnesota Wild did really well. I mean, you look at getting Ugrin and Yurov as a 1-2 punch in the first round. That's really solid. Mikey Milne in the third. We really endorsed that pick. We had him on our board for 2 straight seasons. That alone gives you a pretty solid haul, but you also look at some of the players taken after that point. I mean, I'm gapping on the specifics. I remember I really liked one of them. You'll have to give me a second. Ryan Healy. That was one that we had in the 50s. They got him at 121. Wow. I was like, how do you pull that off? And, they do it every draft for at least the last 2. 3 now. So, you know what? They really did well. I thought the Carolina Hurricanes also had an excellent haul. Didn't have many picks, but they made the most of what was available to them. Trikozov at 60. We had him close to 20. That's huge value on that pick. You look at Vladimir Grudin, and we had him at 32. They got him in the 5th round. Like that's spectacular. And then you also add Paravolov, 11. Very Russia-heavy draft, and they really crushed it. Those are the 2 that really stick out for me. And the San Jose Sharks as well. Like, I don't know if I would endorse Philip Biestet in the 20s. That's a bit rich for my blood, but you look at something like Matthias Havelit in the 2nd, Cameron Lund, some really good value through the mid-rounds of the draft, which they got because they traded out of 11. So made the most of what was available to them, and some really high-value picks, I would add as well.
And that's what really this kind of draft was, right? Like you see guys that might have been on some boards in the first round that are going, 2-3 rounds later. So it's kind of interesting to see it sort of play out like that. We'll see how it plays out for the Canucks and their 6 picks that they have, but I think they got a good one and Lekaramaki in the first round, 15th overall. And of course, we got a good one with JD Burke joining us to recap everything. Thanks so much, JD, for your time, buddy. I'll let you get to a Montreal evening because I know how great that city is, especially on a Friday night.
A Montreal nap first.
All right.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, buddy. Thanks, JD.
All right, cheers.